Hello, it's John, Shopkeep Arty. Welcome. And today we have got a little conversation that we're going to be having with Suzanne Abraham, all about her upcoming workshop that she's going to be doing Tuesday, 17th of October, 2023. It should be about a 2 to 3 hour workshop. But we'll talk all about that right now. Let's go and say, first of all, hello to Suzanne. Hi, Suzanne. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Good, good. So yes, we did a short sort of 1 hour teaser class, I guess, if you like to call it that, a few weeks ago, and that went down really well with our supporters. There were a few sort of thank you donations made at the end of that, and obviously all those that made that donation will get free access to the live workshop, which is coming up, so that's really great, and you'll get an email the day before with the link and everything to join that. But for those that were not fortunate enough to see that first class, or you're just tuning in and you're wanting to just find out more about this workshop, I'll explain how you can book onto the workshop a little bit later. But it's all about now. Actually, this summer I was on holiday down in Cornwall and went to the Scilly Isles. I'd never been to the Scilly Isles before, but there were a huge number of succulents everywhere. Everywhere I walked, there was like little potted succulents, and I thought, oh God, I've never seen so many succulents. And then, lo and behold, the topic for your workshop is succulents. So why did you choose this as a subject of focus?
Well, I think personally I love succulents, and it just brings a charm to any sort of window, even if it's like run down like it's here.
So this is the reference painting that you've got, and you can find more about this on our website as well. But this is the reference that we're going to be using, and we've got a photo as well that you used for that. But yeah, a really nice arrangement.
Yeah. And another reason why I chose this is because it's an easier theme to sketch, mainly if you know about perspective and stuff. You don't really have a lot of perspective that you need to learn before you sketch this, so it's rather easy, simple, but it has a huge impact with all the colors and the shadows and everything. Yeah, that's why I chose this.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And you say that the original one that you had has been sold. So this is just a photo of it, but obviously quite a popular one, because I would imagine on a wall or something, this type of composition, it's quite a summery type of thing, isn't it? It would brighten up any room. So it could be a really nice painting if people really get to grips with it and they do a good job. I think it would look nice in any home. And when did you actually paint the original of this?
I think this was I painted the beginning of this year, maybe in springtime. Funny enough, this is the reference picture is actually from a site called unsplash.com, where you get royalty-free images. So
Yes.
it was one of those cold, well, I can't say spring, maybe wintry days when didn't have anything else to think of, and I wanted to paint something, just bring some color into the studio, and I found this photograph.
Yeah, well, it's a really nice. So maybe you can explain a little bit about some of the techniques or whatever that you'll be teaching in this workshop, because obviously 2 to 3 hours is quite a long time. So we'll have the chance to I guess walk through at every step the sketch, the drawing out, then obviously the watercolor as well. So what will be the sort of the processes, and what will you be trying to look at to sort of educate the audience on?
Okay, so the theme as such, as I explained before, it's quite beginner friendly. So I would start off by teaching the basic techniques of sketching. So whatever little perspective there is, or whatever you need to look out for, I would explain all the details of how to sketch the whole scene. And that's where we'll be starting off with. Followed by a few simple techniques of watercolor wash. So it's a good idea to have some scrap watercolor pieces of paper, or some old sketchbook with watercolor paper, the same paper as you're going to use for the main project. So you can have a go and get a hang of how the watercolor washes are going to be. And another thing that I will be talking about would be the water to pigment ratio, which for me, personally, I feel it's very important to know the water and the pigment ratio in watercolor, so you don't end up getting huge puddles, or sometimes it can look really dry. And it's just about knowing where to use what sort of the different types of washes in watercolor. So I'll talk a lot about that. Another thing would be, again, we'll practice a lot of washes, and then we will begin to try that on our main project. There is a time where we need to leave it to dry a little bit. And sometimes if we're in a hurry, we can always use our hand hairdryer. So that would be a handy tool to have on the day of the workshop. Moving on to the line, I normally add line a little bit later after I've done the first wash. So with the, we start using line with pen. So I'm going to show you the different types of pens that I have. It's just an option. You don't need to have all of these options. Choose anything that you prefer. Simplest one would be a doodle pen or a microtip pen. So you get it in different sizes. The nibs can be different sizes. Another one would be, I personally love using fountain pen. So that's a fountain pen with extra fine nib, and the ink that I'm using here is waterproof. And another option would be a traditional calligraphic dip pen with Indian ink or any sort of waterproof ink that you may want to use. So one important thing is to use waterproof ink so that you can go back into watercolor washes and then keep changing the different techniques that you have learned. And if it's waterproof, then the paint will not smudge. Regarding ink, just two suggestions that I have for ink is these. This is Winsor Newton Indian ink, which is waterproof. You get two different types of Indian ink. One is non-waterproof, one is waterproof. So it's just about finding the waterproof one. And this one is another favorite of mine, Sketch Ink by Roher and Klinger. And I use this in my fountain pen as well. So this is fountain pen compatible. So these are the few techniques and just a few materials that we'll be using. Into watercolors now. So I'm just going to get my palette.
Now, just before we move on to the watercolors, just a question about the sketching, because sometimes we have people that feel that when they're on the online webinar, they can feel a bit rushed with the sketching. So if it's, is it possible that they could sketch beforehand, almost like a light pencil sketch or something like that, if they wanted a little bit more time prior to the class starting? What would you suggest there?
Yeah, I think that can be done. What I can do is the reference picture can be shared. I think it's already online in my
yeah, it is. I'll
shop.
talk about that in a
and
minute.
If you take a printout of that, it can be sketched earlier on, or if you think sketching doesn't work for you, you can always do you can trace it as well. So would you like me to explain, if you were to trace it, what to do as well?
I think we're all purists here. I don't think we do the tracing, but there may be somebody that's open to it. So why don't we? Let's.
Well, I think in the end, we love to see a good result, and sometimes a very important line drawing a line drawing is very important. So sometimes I think it's okay to do a bit of cheating. That's what I feel personally. If you were to trace, I just use a tracing sheet, get the line drawing done, and then I just flip it and trace it onto the watercolor sheet. Another easier option is just use a pencil or a graphite pencil, charcoal if you want, and just shade the back of the paper. Just put it down onto your watercolor paper, start drawing the lines, and it will just get transferred onto your paper. That's the easiest way of transferring a drawing if you prefer.
Mm.
But otherwise, yes, of course, you can do line drawing before the class starts. But I will still be teaching you different ways of drawing as well.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Right. So we were moving on to the watercolor bit.
Yes, watercolor bit. As I mentioned earlier on, I will teach you the water to pigment ratio and the watercolor wash, which is the easiest of the whole watercolor technique. Is just to do a quick wash. But further than that, if you can see my painting, I have used a few layers. You can see a little bit of variation in tonal value here, and that can be achieved if you knew a little bit more about water to pigment ratio. And also, we'll be doing 2 layers of watercolors, very unlike line and wash technique. So I do the first wash, let it dry, and come back to it with some pen, and then I go back to it again with another layer of watercolor to finish off. So that's the second layer of watercolor. And then you can just go back and forth depending on what sort of effect you're looking for. Okay, so just showing my palette here with the different pigments that I'll be using. So I'll be using Pyrrole Orange, which is this one. I've got some different types of blues: cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, and indanthrene blue. I think we would be using a lot of ultramarine blue and cobalt blue, and that's a basic in every palette, I guess. For the planters, I would be using either Venetian red, or if you don't have Venetian red, you can mix up something similar to it with some permanent red and burnt sienna. And for the orange, that was Pyrrole Orange and a little bit of permanent rose, just to get that pinky orange shade. And I think that's about it. That's all the and green is olive green. So these are all the pigments we'll be using. With brushes, I have a selection of brushes, but you could just use one brush. The main brush that we're using is a round pointed size 10 or 12. So if you can see, this is 12 and this is 10. So similar in size, but it needs to be round and pointed. So you have that, it's quite versatile with doing different techniques in the painting. With the larger washes, if you prefer to use a larger brush, a flat brush is ideal. So this one's size 24 actually. So I would say maybe ½ an inch width. And that's optional, that's only if you have it. And for finer details or anything that you may want to add towards the end, I prefer using these sword or dagger brushes. So it's kind of cut to the side, and it just lets me do a lot of details with the tip. So that again is optional, but if you just have the round pointed size 10 to 12, that should be fine. Apart from these, I think that's about the painting, what the materials we need for painting. For sticking your paper down, it's good to have a lightweight drawing board or a foam board, anything that you can stick your paper down with a masking tape. And for water, I usually use 2 jars of water, one to wash my brushes clean and the other one for fresh clean water, so my painting doesn't look muddy. I think I've covered all the materials.
No,
Yeah,
that's brilliant. That's really comprehensive. Thank you so much. And there you go. That's a really good introduction to what we're going to be doing in this 2 to 3 hour workshop, 17th of October. And you can book today. And we've also got a great discount for our patrons as well. And I'll explain that in a minute. So, as I said, how can you book? Well, you visit shopkeeparty.com, and in the menu, there is the events section, and you click that and then scroll down and you'll see a little bit further down there Suzanne's workshop over there. Click on the event details button, and via this has got all the reference photos. You can see that there's a photo just there, but there's also the links to go to Suzanne's shop. So click that link and you can then add the workshop to your cart. It's the webinar and the video, or just the webinar for £16. Add it to cart and then check out. Now, although we do it in pounds, depending on where you are and what currency you're in, your card issuer will convert that automatically after checkout. Once you've done that, if you want to or if you are a patron, actually, let's do that first. If you want to take advantage of a patron discount, we've got a 50% offer. So you click on that link there and it will take you through to the relevant link, and you can purchase it at a 50% discount. And then in the future, once we've done the workshop, you'll be able to search for Suzanne on the artist drop down there and play her workshop video time and time again. We've obviously got all our past videos on our video library, so hopefully that helps. Right, so Suzanne, it's been lovely to have you today to explain the workshop. What are you working on at the moment, out of interest, in your paintings? Are you working, have you got anything that's under construction?
Yes, I have. Well, it's slightly different to what I'm doing, well, compared to this one.
Yeah.
I'm on multiple projects.
I didn't tell Suzanne I was going to ask her this question, so this is totally quarter on the hop. I love doing that. Okay.
I'm on multiple projects right now because
Okay.
I've got a workshop coming up in one of the very beautiful National Trust areas near me, and I am to give them an idea about spontaneous landscapes. So I've been practicing that. So that's just an example of what I was doing.
Okay.
So these landscapes are like, well, let's say maximum 15 minutes. So that's
just to pull off just to knock out a landscape in a very short space of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, lovely.
So yeah, it took a little bit of time, so that's another one.
Okay. And you're just kind of working out your color mixes and things like that. Got you.
And that's another spontaneous one. So they all took about 10-15 minutes maximum.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, and I have one more project going on right now. It's just using different types of dip pens to just using different types of dip pens to create sketches, and mainly autumn finds. So I have been using these twigs and feathers. So if you give me 1 minute, I'm going to take that sketch out.
Okay, okay. Totally caught Suzanne by surprise with that question, but
so yeah, these are a few sketches that I did with twigs and feathers. And I've got my references here. It's
right. So you actually use the twigs and the feathers to sketch these things out. Okay. Oh, that's really interesting.
I've got my references here as well. So I just went walking, picked these, and I'm using those for quick sketches. And I'm also using dip pens, bamboo dip pens.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, it just goes to show you don't need to spend all this fortune on materials and brushes and all these really expensive. Just go and grab a feather or a stick. Yeah.
That's a fun project.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Suzanne. Really looking forward to the workshop. As I say, if you've got any questions, do get in touch with us via our platform. But until next time, obviously, goodbye from me. And thank you again to Suzanne. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.